Everyone loves going to the movies, and this is one of my favourite commercial properties. Hello and welcome back. I'm sitting here at the Rivoli, one of my favourite little places to watch movies, and also sitting in front of one of my favourite directors, Orson Welles. I want to talk a little bit about perpetual leases, what they are, why I think properties that have a quote perpetual lease are very, very important for investors. Typically with commercial property, there are a couple of choices that small investors can make in terms of asset types. Two broad groups are specialised commercial and non-specialised. So if you look at non-specialised, they generally split into retail, offices, and industrial. And if you look at specialised, there are a number of different specialised commercial properties, such as childcare centres, medical centres, storage units, petrol stations, properties that have been purposefully built for a certain type of use. What I want to focus on is non-specialised. That makes up the bulk of the commercial space, especially in that sub $5 million mark. One of the key things that investors should be looking at to make sure that their assets don't have a significant vacancy period, meaning that the properties continually have a tenant and that they're not always chasing new tenants or looking for new tenants to move into vacant premises, because ultimately that has an impact on the return. And the reason why you buy a commercial property is for return purposes. In fact, one of the ways you value commercial property is on a yield basis, and that yield very much depends on the recurring passive income, the recurring net income. So behind me are some good examples. If you have a look on that side, there's a food business, then there's a furniture business, and then you've got a food business. You've got three food businesses in a row, and then you've got a rug business and a cleaning business on the other side. When you've got a good property with a tenant and a business that potentially provides a perpetual lease, it makes those properties really very, very attractive from an investor's point of view. So this is a really good example of a perpetual lease at work. A business, for example, like Charcoal Charlie's, they would be looking to sell the business if the business wasn't doing too well, and most of the funds would be recouped through the sale. Then you would have a new owner taking over the business and signing a new lease, whether it be a transfer of lease or an assignment of lease. And there you have a situation where the tenant has found you another tenant. In fact, there's a property near Charcoal Charlie's, which is a restaurant. Previously it was a Nando's restaurant, now it's a Thai restaurant. And so you have this situation where once a business is established, a certain type of business, then you have a future business which is similar or has a slight variation. But a lot of these businesses have things like grease pits. Could be a 1 or 2 cubic meter grease pit underground. Above ground they have canopies, they have 3-phase power, they have lots of refrigeration, they have gas pipelines running through the shop. So there's a lot of equipment, a lot of investment that goes into these little shops, whether they be 100 square meters or 200 or 300 square meters. And what you don't tend to see is owners of these businesses just walking out. For example, a business that sells clothing, if it's not doing well, they can just walk, just remove all their stock and just move out and the place is vacant. Typically a business that has invested quite a bit of money would be looking to offset, if the business wasn't doing well, they'd be looking to offset that investment through a sale, a market sale, and they would be typically calling a business broker, and that business broker would be finding them a new tenant. So whenever I've invested in retail, what I'm looking for is a perpetual lease. So the definition means different things to different people, but to me, when I think of a perpetual lease, I'm talking about a tenant finding the next tenant. So it's a perpetual lease to an investor, not necessarily to the tenant. The thing with perpetual leases too is everyone benefits. The banks benefit, the landlord benefits, the tenant benefits, and the new tenant, but the old and the new tenant all benefit because everyone wins. The other thing is it's also very common for a tenant to sell a business at a profit. So it's not always the case that a tenant will sell the business to try and get out to make a loss. This idea of a business selling to another business owner is advantageous for everyone. The banks want to see the property is always leased out. The new owner wants to be able to recoup or make a profit on their initial investment. The new tenant wants to buy an established business It's always easier to improve an established business than to start a new one. And of course, the landlord doesn't have to spend money looking for new tenants. Finally, whilst we talked a little bit about perpetual leases, and that's really, really critical when investing in retail, what's really even more important is pedestrian traffic. So there are two types of retail properties. There are what we call destination retail and impulse retail. Impulse retail is people just walking into a shop because there's just so much pedestrian traffic, and that's the best type of retail. And then of course we talk about destination retail, where people physically drive out to a premises because they want something and they know where that shop is. So there's a lot of things to know about retail. So I love the retail industry. I think retail is a great investment. Also, you know, in closing, it's important to note that the majority of retail out there is generally B or C grade. So it's important to be able to identify A grade retail, B grade, C grade. There's a lot to know, but I suppose that's what buyer's agents are for. Thank you very much for your time.